426, Hemi greatest engine of all time or overrated icon. Welcome to Muscle Car Masters, where we dive deep into the world of classic American muscle. Today, we're tackling a topic that's ignited debates for decades. Is the 426 Hemi the greatest engine of all time, a true powerhouse performer, or just hype? The 426 Hemi is an iconic engine that defined an era. This legendary big block V8 powered some of the most sought-after muscle cars, from the 426 Hemi Charger to the Plymouth Road Runner. Today, we're diving deep into the heart of the Hemi, exploring its origins, its dominance in NASCAR and drag racing, and its enduring legacy in the world of muscle cars. We'll analyze its specifications, examine its impact on the industry, and let you decide, is the 426 Hemi a powerhouse performer or an overrated icon? Prepare to be captivated by the raw power of the 426 Hemi, a testament to Chrysler's engineering brilliance. Join us as we unpack the truth behind this iconic engine and let you decide. Is the 426 Hemi the greatest of all time or just a well-oiled legend? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click that bell notification to stay tuned for more epic journeys into the world of muscle cars. Let us know what you think of the 426 Hemi. Is it a legend or just hype? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. The origins of the 426 Hemi. The 426 Hemi was not born on the streets. It was forged in the crucible of motorsports. In the early 1960s, Chrysler was falling behind in NASCAR, struggling to keep up with the likes of Ford's 427 FE and Chevrolet's Mystery engine. Chrysler had been relying on their max wedge engines, but while these engines performed admirably, they lacked the top-end speed needed to dominate. In 1963, Chrysler engineers knew they needed a new weapon. That weapon was the 426 Hemi, designed for one purpose: to dominate NASCAR. The Hemi moniker comes from its hemispherical combustion chambers, a design that allowed for larger valves, better airflow, and more efficient combustion. The result? An engine that produced incredible power and left the competition eating dust. The first appearance of the 426 Hemi was at the 1964 Daytona 500. And what a debut it was! Richard Petty's Hemi-powered Plymouth took the checkered flag, not just winning, but dominating the race. Chrysler claimed the top 3 spots, and the automotive world was left in shock. The Hemi had arrived, and it was here to stay. Engineering masterpiece. For car enthusiasts, the arrival of the street version of the 426 Hemi was like a dream come true. After all, who wouldn't want to get their hands on the same engine that Richard Petty used to crush the competition at Daytona? But transitioning a high-performance race engine to the street wasn't without its challenges. Chrysler engineers had to make several key adjustments to make the 426 Hemi streetable. They lowered the compression ratio from 12.5 to 1 to 10.25 to 1, and swapped out the race-spec aluminum heads for more durable cast iron. But what made the 426 Hemi so special? Let's talk specs. At its core, the 426 Hemi was a V8 engine with 426 cubic inches and 7.0 liter of displacement. The real magic, though, lay in the hemispherical combustion chamber design. This design allowed for massive 2.25-inch intake valves and 1.94-inch exhaust valves, huge compared to the competition at the time. The hemispherical design allowed for better air and fuel mixture, which translated to more explosive power in each cylinder. The engine block was made of cast iron, while the cylinder heads were aluminum in the race versions. though they switched to iron for the street models to handle everyday driving. With a compression ratio of 10.25 to 1 in street form, it could still crank out a monstrous 425 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque. Although many suspect these numbers were conservative. With numbers like that, it's easy to see why the 426 Hemi became known as the Elephant. Massive, powerful, and impossible to ignore. But there was more to the story. As great as the 426 Hemi was on paper, it wasn't always easy to live with. It was heavy, over 800 pounds, and it consumed fuel at an alarming rate. Its dual 4-barrel carburetors were temperamental, and it required high-octane fuel to perform at its best. But not everything about the 426 Hemi was perfect. The engine was expensive, adding nearly $900 to the price of a car, a hefty sum in the late 1960s. And it wasn't exactly the easiest engine to live with day to day. The Hemi was temperamental, difficult to tune, and hard to maintain for those who weren't seasoned mechanics. Despite its raw power, the 426 Hemi wasn't exactly known for its smoothness. On the streets, the 426 Hemi was a beast, but only in the hands of those who knew how to tame it. That said, for those who could handle it, the Hemi delivered unparalleled performance. Cars equipped with the 426 Hemi and a 4-speed manual transmission could rocket from 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds and run the quarter-mile in just over 13 seconds. Those were blistering numbers for the time, but the big question remained. Was the 426 Hemi truly a street-friendly powerhouse? Or was it more of a race-bred engine that struggled to adapt to the everyday driver's needs? The Hemi's legacy. Back on the racetrack, the 426 Hemi continued to make waves. In NASCAR, it was so dominant that by 1965, it was banned from competition. NASCAR ruled that any engine used in the races had to be available in production cars. Chrysler's response? They put the 426 Hemi in 500 street-legal vehicles, birthing the legendary Street Hemi in 1966. The Street Hemi found its way into some of the most iconic Mopar muscle cars ever made. The Dodge Charger, Plymouth Roadrunner, and Plymouth Barracuda. These weren't just cars, they were rolling legends. With a 426 Hemi under the hood, these cars could rocket down the quarter-mile in just over 13 seconds. For the time, that kind of performance was nearly unheard of in a production car. But the Hemi didn't stop there. In drag racing, the 426 Hemi became a legend in its own right. Top fuel dragsters began using modified versions of the Hemi, and by the late 1960s, the engine had set a new standard in drag racing. Teams like Sox and Martin, Don Garlits, and the Ramchargers took the Hemi to new heights, setting records and winning championships along the way. The Hemi was especially dominant in the Superstock and Pro Stock classes, where it became the go-to engine for serious drag racers. Don Garlits, one of the most famous drag racers in history, used a 426 Hemi to win the U.S. Nationals in 1968. Over the years, the Hemi proved its worth on drag strips across the country. Even today, top fuel and funny car dragsters are powered by Hemi-derived engines producing over 10,000 horsepower. There's no other engine in history that can claim such dominance across so many different racing disciplines. Cultural impact and legacy. The 426 Hemi's dominance on the track translated into a powerful cultural impact of it. The phrase, "Yeah, it's got a Hemi," became a badge of honor for muscle car enthusiasts. In movies, music, and TV shows, the Hemi was the ultimate symbol of raw American power. Its distinctive bulging hood became an icon in its own right. But as emissions regulations and rising fuel costs took hold in the early 1970s, the glory days of the 426 Hemi began to fade. By 1971, The street Hemi was no more. The 426 Hemi made its last appearance in a production car in 1971, marking the end of an era. And yet, even in death, the 426 Hemi refused to fade into obscurity. It lived on in drag racing and in the hearts of car enthusiasts. Racers continued to use Hemi-powered cars, and to this day, the basic architecture of the 426 Hemi powers nitro-burning top-fuel dragsters and funny cars, the fastest accelerating vehicles in the world. Today, restored Hemi-powered cars command astronomical prices at auction. But is that legacy built on true greatness, or is it simply nostalgia? Let's dig a little deeper. The legacy of the 426 Hemi is undeniable, transcending its original production run to become a lasting symbol of American muscle and engineering mastery. Over the years, the term Hemi has become synonymous with raw power and high performance, forever ingrained in car culture. When enthusiasts talk about muscle cars, the Hemi is always front and center in the discussion. Even today, 6 decades after its introduction, the 426 Hemi is revered in automotive circles. Its DNA lives on in modern Mopar crate engines that still carry the Hemi name, borrowing key design principles from their legendary predecessor. Restorations of classic Hemi-powered muscle cars fetch premium prices at auctions, with some rare models going for millions. Chrysler, now part of Stellantis, continues to use the Hemi name in its modern V8 engines. While these new engines may no longer feature true hemispherical combustion chambers, they maintain the legacy with a focus on power and performance. Modern iterations, like the Hellcat and Demon engines, produce jaw-dropping power numbers, achievements that the original 426 Hemi engineers could hardly have imagined. Overrated icon or the greatest engine ever? Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Pun intended. Was the 426 Hemi truly the greatest engine of all time, or is it an overrated relic of the past? There's no denying the 426 Hemi was a game-changer in the 1960s and 70s. It dominated NASCAR, NHRA, and became the powerhouse behind some of the greatest muscle cars in history. But it also had its shortcomings. It was heavy, expensive, and difficult to maintain. And while it was unbeatable on the track, it wasn't the most practical engine for everyday driving. Even in drag racing, early adopters of the Hemi struggled to make it work at first. It wasn't until racers like Don Garlits discovered the engine's full potential that it truly began to dominate. So, is the 426 Hemi overrated? That depends on how you look at it. If you judge an engine purely by its performance, durability, and legacy in motorsports, then the 426 Hemi has few equals. But if you consider its real-world usability and its quirks, you could argue that its legend has been exaggerated over the years. So there you have it, the story of the 426 Hemi, one of the most iconic engines in automotive history. But now we want to hear from you. Is the 426 Hemi the greatest engine of all time, or is it an overrated icon built more on nostalgia than reality? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Muscle Car Masters for more deep dives into the engines that shaped the muscle car era. Whether you think the Hemi was a powerhouse performer or just a bloated relic of the past, one thing's for sure. The Hemi changed the game forever. Stay tuned for more legendary engines because we're just getting started.